Hello, welcome to MTG Studios. I'm Maria. The last time I showed you how to draw form and use your pencil to get the proper shading, creating highlights, core shadows, cast shadows. But the question remains, what pencils do I use? What pencil should you use? So today I'd like to explore all the different varieties of pencils that I have here in my studio and help you make a better decision on what brand and what kind of pencils you might like to use in your drawings. So let's get started because it's time for art. As you can see, I have quite a variety of pencils in my collection, and to better understand why there are so many different kinds of pencils, we need to look at and understand what this rating means. What does HB mean on a pencil? What's a number 2 pencil? What's a number 2 HB pencil compared to a 6B pencil? Generally speaking, there are two basic ratings. The H is going to represent the hardness of the pencil itself, what's in that lead and how it's pressed and how hard it is. So think of the H as standing in for the word hard. How hard is that lead in the pencil? Now the B is going to stand for how black that lead is inside that pencil. And then the numbers are going to indicate the blackness, the strength of the color of the lead. So if you've got an H pencil, generally the higher the number associated with it, the harder and lighter the lead is going to be. And the lower the number, the blacker the lead is going to be. Now the exact opposite is true when we're talking about a B pencil. The B representing the blackness of the lead. Generally, your HB pencil is going to be your middle of the road pencil. It's hard, it's black, it's basically as close to a number 2 pencil that you can get. However, with the softer leads like this Design Ebony from Sanford, the softer leads, the greater the number, the blacker that B part of the pencil rating is. So what you want to do basically is purchase a variety of pencils and see which ones work the best for you. These are some of my favorite soft lead pencils. We've got 4 different brands here, well 3 different brands. There's 2 from Generals. There's one that's called a Layout Extra Black pencil and one that's called a Charcoal pencil. It's a 6B, so you know it's really, really soft. And you can tell just by the fact that I can put that on my finger and it'll come right off. This is my go-to extra smooth, jet black, soft lead pencil. I really enjoy using the ebony pencils, so I get them by the dozen. These are some other pencils that I've purchased throughout the years, and they work pretty well, but they're not my favorite. So again, it's a personal choice. Try different pencils, see which ones you like the best for your needs and your drawing style. So those are my go-to soft lead pencils. Graphite can also come like this chunk of graphite that I have from General's Kimberly brand, and you can see here that it says it's a 6B. So it is basically as soft as this one here, but it's graphite, it's not charcoal. Very different thing altogether. So what we want to do is we want to play around with these pencils a little bit. Now, I recommend that when you do this, you basically write down the name. So this is my General's layout. And then play with it and see how dark and how light you can get it. Use a variety of marks as well. What kinds of marks can you make with it? Using it by its tip, on its side, and what happens when you rub at it and smear it with your finger. So that's the General's layout. Well, let's see what this General's chunk of graphite, see what that does. Well, doesn't seem to be doing much of anything. So there's this little tool that I have. It is, it's also produced by the same company, General's, and it's what artists use to sharpen pencils or charcoals that don't want to sharpen very easily in a pencil sharpener. For example, this is not going to fit in a pencil sharpener. So I can do that, and now I've got some movement out of that pencil or that graphite chunk, and see what happens there. So this is getting on my fingers a little bit more than it is on the paper, but you can see what I'm doing here. You can also dump that and maybe use your finger or one of these tools. It's called a tortillon, and you can use that to smear that graphite around. Some artists like to do this sort of thing where they play with the actual shavings of the graphite, and a tool like a tortillon or your finger or a brush. Could even add liquid to it if you wanted to, and see what happens there. Here's my ebony pencil that I already said I really like, and I can tell you from the feel of the General's layout pencil and the ebony pencil, they're very similar, except this one feels a little harder than the General's layout pencil to me. And you can see when I do the same thing I did over here that it even looks, it doesn't look quite as black as that one. Now I can certainly increase the blackness of that lead by putting more pressure on that point. But what happens with a softer pencil is that when you put that pressure on that point, sometimes you run the risk of breaking that point. So again, you want to experiment, make some different marks, and see just exactly how does that pencil feel and what kinds of things can I get out of that pencil. Here's an H pencil, which is going to be hard. Doesn't have a number associated with it, so I don't really know how hard this pencil is. So I'm just going to write down that this is my Stettler H. And again, play around with it. See what it can do. You're basically making pencil swatches. And then see if this smears at all with a tortillon or your finger. Not so much. The other thing that you want to explore with your pencils is erasers. Now, my go-to eraser is going to be my Staedtler Mars plastic eraser. This I find works best for me. I grew up with the Pink Pearl from Papermate. This also is a latex-free eraser, but for my purposes, it doesn't always erase as well for me as the Staedtler. Again, it's a preference. Which do you prefer? Something like a Pink Pearl or the Staedtler? Now this is a kneaded eraser where you kind of squeeze it. It's sticky, but it will pick up pencil in a very specific way. If you have a very fine detail that you want to lift out in a very specific way, you can use your kneaded eraser to get a nice fine point and press it into those little areas that you want to lift out. It can also give you some interesting effects, but the pencil gets on there, so that's why we need to keep squeezing the kneaded eraser to get a clean pull. Otherwise, now that that pencil is there, it's not going to pull off as much lead the next time you hit it. So those are just some of the tools, and of course, if you don't have a pencil sharpener that's mounted onto the wall, then I always have a handheld pencil sharpener, but I like to get one that has a variety of openings in it. Now this is my basic simple one that I take with me when I go plein air painting or drawing. It's small enough and compact enough to travel with me. Those are some of the tools that you will need to explore. We've done the Staedtler H. Now I'm going to do the Staedtler HB and play around with that one. Now I'm going to continue to explore my regular Staedtler B. Again, remember B stands for the blackness. Now H stands for hardness. You can see how this B pencil is a lot softer. And if I take a clean finger, I can see that that's going to smudge just a little bit better than the HB, because this is going to be a softer, blacker pencil than the HB. It's very subtle. And this is my Staedtler number 2. And again, creating that swatch. So those are my Staedtler pencils. Now I'm going to explore the General Kimberly. These are all my General's Kimberly pencils. Now I'm going to explore my barrels. These are pencils that my father used to use, and that's how they came into my collection. These are actually his old pencils. So I have a 2H and a 2B. The 2H should be hard. The 2B should be softer. So let's see. So we're going to practice with the barrel 2H, and see see what kind of swatch we get with the barrel 2H. Now, my father was an architect, so he really liked his hard pencils. Very precise lines, and if I go to smear that with my finger, you can see it doesn't smear very easily at all. Now let's try our 2B. I can tell you right now, look at how much blacker the 2B is. This is going to be a very soft pencil, very black graphite. And let's see what the smear factor is here. Oh yeah, very smearable. Now this is a Sanford 4B. So when we're looking at B pencils, again, the higher the number, the softer the lead that is going to be in that pencil. When we're talking about an H pencil, the higher the number, the harder the pencil, and the lighter the lead. So let's look at our Sanford design pencil 4B. We can see the smear factor here. I call it the smear factor because when I'm doing a drawing, I like to be able to have that smear factor so that I can get the kinds of shading. It gives me something extra in my drawing. This is an 8H pencil. So what do you think? H stands for hardness. The number is much higher than a 2. Do you think this is going to be a lot lighter or softer? Let's see. So this is the Tombow 8H. And you can see right away that it is indeed much, much lighter. If I go to try and shade with this, it's not as black. And in fact, what I am feeling, and you can probably hear it a little bit too, it's almost scratching at my paper. If I press really hard, it's not going to get it any blacker. It's just going to create a groove in my paper. And I can actually see how it is making a mark in that paper. So here's something to consider when you are using hard pencils like this and you decide you need to erase. It's going to be very difficult to erase that pencil. Not only because the pencil itself, the graphite itself, is hard to erase, but now I've got those grooves in the paper that are showing up. So now, gather your collection of pencils and erasers and get your sketchbook out and create a number of swatches and decide for yourself which pencils you really enjoy using.